Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 170. Someone call the foreman. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside co-host Ryan and Ant. How you doing, boys?
Well, the train has derailed on my good mood, but on the plus side, I might not have to pay for a tattoo. Actually, there's a good chance I won't be paying for a tattoo. So swings and roundabouts, but it's festive, it's Christmas, and yeah, life's good. Nice weekend, nice long weekend off of work. So I'm in a good place right now.
Oh, I'm not. I've been working all over Christmas, and of course that game, it's just like it's put a right cold damper on it, and so hey ho, it happens. You know, it's the festive period still, and you know we're here, we're having fun. So,
are you in Steve's house, Matthew?
No, that's like a 15th century version of Steve's house. Those books look a lot older.
Those books aren't real. I'm in my parents' house, and my dad does a little bit of podcasting and video stuff and video calls and whatever. And this is a facade. There's a bed behind there, my old bed when I was growing up. So, and just to
see that.
Just to say, for anyone who normally listens on Twitch or YouTube, we'll be uploading this. So if you're watching, you will see that. But apologies for not being live for this. My internet here just won't hold up to it. And quite frankly, it's Boxing Day, and I just don't think anyone's going to be watching at this time anyway. But happy holidays. Hope you all had a good Christmas in spite of the result this weekend. I will get to some preamble now. Maybe we can talk a bit of Christmas as well, see if anyone got anyone nice things. But don't forget our Discord channel. I will put a link up in the description of the episode on YouTube. Do join us there for some good times. 2 weeks to go. Lots of draft top content coming, so come and join us there. College football podcast, gents. And I'm hoping you're doing one this week because it is the conference semi-finals coming up next weekend. So what are you going to be talking about?
We're going to do one. We've not decided yet, though, but it will be coming. I've just been working a lot, so I've not had a chance to plan it. But yeah, keep an eye out for updates, and it'll be coming. We'll be talking about the playoff games, and have lots of other stuff in there.
All right. Don't forget to like the show, sub to the podcast, comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, it helps us out. Don't forget to download the app at lionsnationunite.com. That's Herman Moore's pet project to bring the best in Lions content creators together from all over YouTube. That includes us and Micro Mike and Lions on the Prowl, as well as Dose of Dion and others. lionsnationunite.com. And we're a Twitch affiliate. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you get a Twitch Prime sub free every month. It's about $2.50 worth, and you know every little helps towards supporting the stream and paying towards ongoing costs. If you have one available and you'd like to throw it away, or to any other content creator, if you're not using it, then please do. It makes a massive difference to us guys. Let's crack on with a little bit of news before we go into the Lions at Panthers review. And despite the Lions blowout loss, the Lions will not be eliminated in Week 17 if they beat the Bears. Under any circumstances, if they beat the Bears, Week 18 in Lambeau Field will mean something. And even with a loss against the Bears in Week 17, there is a chance that the Lions will not be eliminated. Washington is the game there that can eliminate the Lions. There is go to Pride of Detroit on this. They've got a good range of scenarios. There's a scenario where even with the tiebreaker, the Seahawks tying with us when it's all said and done might not eliminate us, which is really interesting to read. The other piece of really big news this weekend happened earlier today, so Boxing Day, is that the Denver head coach Nathaniel Hackett has been fired following the embarrassing blowout loss to the LA Rams, 51-14, which left the Denver Broncos 4-11. Not even one and done, fellas, for Hackett. It's a shocking state of affairs for a franchise expecting to be contending this season.
See, I've been getting well into this already on Twitter. Like, this is one of the biggest scapegoat moves I've ever seen. Now, he's not a good head coach. He's lost locker room. But 50% of the blame has got to go to the miserable performances from the players. First in the league with 107 penalties, top 5 in offensive holding penalties, DPI, and with false starts. That's why they don't score many points. but the offensive coordinating calling in the red zone has been atrocious. They've got a QB that I think is a total dickhead and loves himself and makes most head coaches' jobs impossible because it's come out that he can be a bit cancerous. So this one, he had to go. Head coaches have to go, don't they? Because they're the only people that can really be held responsible. But they've given that awful extension to Russ, who's now set them back 2 or 3 years because they can't get rid of him for anything less than like 30, 40 million in dead cap. The GM is going to also have to explain this at some point because he's just a part to blame in this mess. But yeah, the players are fighting with each other. Brett Ripien got into a fight with a defensive lineman, I think, last night on the sideline. There was a big argument between one of the offensive linemen and Russ because he thanks God for everything, but he thinks he is God. And he's a big reason why the Broncos suck. But it's unfortunate. All I want to say is I would not be once the guy that takes over this team because it can't just be fixed even if they get the perfect head coach. I mean, there's a lot of young talent there. Satan, Judy, Greg Dulcich, guys like that, Josie Jewell, good veterans, Justin Simmons. But the rest of it, there's some dead wood there and there's a lot of things that need fixing. So very much a long-term project, but giving Russell Wilson $250 million has really made that a lot more difficult. So Broncos, I'd say, buckle up for the next 2 or 3 years because it's not going to be easy to steady this ship because you're going to have to get rid of the QB pretty quickly.
Broncos players should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, it was just disgraceful seeing yesterday. You're getting blown out by an LA Rams team yesterday who have lost pretty much every single major player on their team and were 4 wins. And you're fighting more on the sideline, chirping at your own teammates than you are on the field, trying to make a point that you're not a bad side. It was, I think they should be ashamed. Obviously, Hackett should have gone, but the players, I think, deserve a lot more blame here. If those were Detroit Lions players and that was a Lions team last night, I'd be lambasting the players more than I would the coach because I think it was disgraceful how they behaved and there's no pride in them. They don't care. There's nothing about it that they look bothered about it, and it was just a shambles. And for the love of God, NFL, any game this week remaining this year where they are not playing in a 6 o'clock Sunday slot, can put them there and bury the game to the bottom of the chart. I do not want to see them in prime time or on late slots anymore. They're atrocious this year. Fucking awful.
I mean, for me, the biggest reason why this has all happened is, there was always that stat line of, well, if Denver could just score 18 points on offense, they'd have 1 loss on the season. Well, you come into this game now and suddenly the defense gives up a 50-burger against an offense, which is terrible. So the one thing that was actually good about this team has now started to go wrong against a terrible offense. And when the players start fighting on the sidelines, what it says to me, yes, okay, the players, but we already knew the players weren't executing. What it says to me is that the coach has lost control of what's happening over there. Yeah, blame the players for it, but it comes under the remit and responsibility of the head coach to have a handle on those things. And you know what? Sometimes it ain't the head coach's fault because he can't control them. But you know what? You kind of need to find a way. Like, that is part of your job. And once that starts happening, you've lost the locker room and you need to go. I think the biggest reason why he hasn't seen out the season is because of those fights. The players got him fired last night. Absolutely awful.
One of them's been suspended today. A Rams player and a Broncos player was suspended today for unnecessary roughness after the game and unsportsmanlike conduct during it. So that's not very good.
No, not at all. Right. Let's get into the Detroit-Carolina game. Finished 37-23 in favor of Carolina, although that masked that Carolina actually got up big time in this game, with Detroit scoring some late points in this one. Jared Goff actually had a pretty reasonable stat line, 25 of 42 for 355 and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions, passer rating of 110.7. But Sam Darnold, he threw half as much, 15 of 22 for 250 and a touchdown. That's a rating of 121. You may have scored 2 touchdowns less and thrown it a lot less, but he completed a lot more for almost as many yards. The biggest difference in these two teams, however, wasn't in the passing game. Detroit rushed for 45 yards total, on 17 carries. Their leading rusher was Jared Goff, 3 carries for 15 yards. Carolina, on the other hand, went 43 carries for 320 yards. That's 7.4 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. Both Chuba Hubbard and Donta Foreman went over 100 yards. Chuba Hubbard was 12 carries for 125 yards. That's 10.4 yards per carry, which is absolutely shameful. Those rushing figures for Denver were franchise records. So 320 was a franchise record, and the total offense of 570 yards was also a franchise record in the coldest game ever played at the Panthers Stadium. So that was absolutely horrific. Boys, just as a high-level take, I mean, it was absolute destruction in the places that mattered most, really. The places that the Lions identify with, they lost the game.
So just as a high-level take Shane Zylstra, put him to the side. He's fine. He did good. The rest of them, it was absolutely disgraceful. What happened this weekend just gone. There was, from snap one, they had us on toast, and we never really looked like we were going to get back into it. Apart from that first touchdown, you thought it was good, but the second we fumbled that snap and gave it them back, the game was dead and over. And it was just, you're not used to seeing this. They did to us what we do to other teams. They bodied us, they killed us in the trenches, and they finished us off, and they never let go, to the point where you felt the game was dead at halftime. It was dead at halftime. The second half was kind of just a bit of an exhibition, if you were, and it was a shame. You just don't expect to see a team get bodied that badly, especially that's where we're meant to be strong. Conditions are against you a little bit, they're not the greatest. It's quite cold. There's a lot of running going on. And I mean, just that offensive line of theirs killed us. They blocked well. They got good in leverage. They got good push. They just kept pushing the chains against us. And they made Sam Darnold's life easy, and even then, the D-line didn't do its job, didn't stop the run. And then the secondary, I mean, they had 250 passing yards, and about 160 of them were yards after the catch. That's disgraceful. It is really, honestly disgraceful that we just couldn't do anything against it. And unfortunately, we've done really well this last one. Don't get me wrong, the 6-1 has been great, but we have kind of just been shown where we are as a team. This is still a young team in pressure situations, hasn't proven itself yet, because this was potentially a playoff thing. This playoffs could have been there. We had it, and they weren't up to scratch. And unfortunately, we just have to accept that's where we are at the minute. It's not a bad thing. That's the next hump to get over. We've started learning how to win games. Now we've got to start learning how to win games when it really, truly matters at the end of the season. And, that's the stage where this team is. So it was very, very disappointing, but it's hard to win in the NFL every week. And sometimes you will get games like this. And they got their ass handed to them by Pittsburgh. And I think we were just a team that unfortunately received the backlash from that. And it happens.
I was telling people on Twitter for a week, I had people saying, "Oh, you're crazy, Carolina, they're no threat to us." And I said many times, don't look past them, because they'll slap us in the face. And they did. This was good. This humbled us. I think some people need to bring him back down to earth. Some people were getting a bit carried away. I agree. We're not a playoff team. We're not ready yet. This was by far the worst defensive performance of the year for me. D-line, no pressure. Gap integrated bad. Linebackers, horrendous. Anzalone, absolutely useless. Over pursuing constantly. Missed tackles. A handful of defensive backs just throwing arms out. One of the worst tackling performances of the year. I think offense, they went to prevent. I think most of those points were garbage. We did not deserve them at all. Goff was good, but I think they went into show-up shot mode. We want this game over and done with, so that made him look better. I think most of that fourth quarter, they were happy. It was a cakewalk. They were managing the clock. We were never in it because we had no clock management. And I understand, like say Dan Fraser in Carolina, like say he said, yeah, we got the shit kicked out of us, and they were pretty good, but yeah, it changes how I see the last 2 games of the season now. Like, I don't really care about making the list. I'd hate to go to the playoffs and we get that performance again. I'd rather not make it. I don't want to go to the playoffs and have our ass handed to us again. I'd rather just admit that we're still a young team, not ready. But yeah, it was frustrating. But I hope in the long term that they're going to look back on this. This is one of the games that said, yeah, it humbled us. It proved that things need to change.
I mean, I think it was a good thing that it brought us back down to earth, Ryan. I completely buy that. I don't buy that we're not a playoff team on the back of this performance. And I think I said it in the Discord chat. You saw Green Bay get humbled by Tampa. Admittedly, that was a good Tampa team. This is potentially not a good Carolina team. But you do see good teams sometimes get humbled. Are Detroit a good team? I don't really know yet. I think in some ways the way that we'll look back at this season is going to be encapsulated by these last 2 games. Go and win these last 2 games, and I think we fully merit a playoff spot, even if it is the 7th seed. You know, it's one of those things where we kind of we can win both games and not get in. I know that, but in some form or fashion, in terms of the narrative of the season, we hold it in our hands now. Beat Chicago, beat Green Bay, we go 5-1 in division. We can rightly look back at the season and say, you know what, we probably outperformed expectations. And equally lose these 2 games coming up, 3-3 in division, win at home, lose away against everyone in division. I might be mistaken there, but it's something like that. And you look back at it and go, oh yeah, maybe, but yeah, like okay, beg your pardon. But you know, what could have been? We lose these 2 games coming and we think what could have been, even though maybe it's better than some people expected, and it's more double the wins of last year. It's like, actually, but it could have been better and we were there. The defense, the run defense especially, is obviously the biggest problem from this weekend, just gone. But you have a look at the performances we put in against Aaron Jones and Saquon Barkley, and we have a look at Justin Fields and Aaron Jones and whatever coming up, and you think, okay, what was special about this Carolina team that meant that we couldn't stop them, but we could stop all these other guys, or these threats coming in? I'm less worried about the Bears and the Vikings the Bears and the Packers than I'm against Carolina. And I've said that before this game. You know, it's just on a high level.
No, I think for me,
I think when we realised these games needed something, when the team actually dawned on them that they could make the playoffs, they didn't show up. This was one of the biggest games of the season. Those games previously, they didn't think they were in the running. They never actually dawned on them. They thought, we're plucky, we can kind of make it. They were meaningless. They were playing to win, but they weren't playing for a bigger picture back then, I don't think. But this Carolina game, it was all like laid out in front of them. And I think they got stage fright, because for the first snap, that big run, I don't think they were ever ready. I'm not saying they didn't prepare well, but we've not been great on the road as we are at home. I'm not saying say the golf indoors, outdoors, but on the road, when we don't have that big following or the crowd to G them up, even if we've got good fans, it looked like stage fright, because they realised the possible momentum this could have generated. And that's not saying we're losers, that's just saying a bit young, a bit wet behind the ears. And that's all right for the second youngest team in the league. But those previous games, it felt like less was on the line. Now, these last 2 games, I feel like the pressure, we're gonna really see how it molds them. Like I say, I think these 2 games are massive just to see how we bounce back. This was a gut wrencher, so I want to see how they bounce back now. But yeah, like I said, if the season ends and we go 8-9, am I happy? Be delighted. If we go 9-8 and don't make the playoffs because it's not in our own hands anymore, it sucks. But things like that happen. So if the end of the season ends today, I'm fairly happy. It was the manner of the defeat, not the defeat, to just fall behind so quickly and just kind of look like we were all at sea.
See, the most concerning thing is that you know, there are losses and you will lose games occasionally, but when you get so badly beaten at what is meant to be your strength, that is when it's a problem. If Sam Darnold throws it for 400 yards through the air, you know, I know he's probably never done that in a game before, but you can kind of accept that because your secondary is still young, it's learning, yada, yada, yada. But they have broken through both our trench lines. And I mean broken the pair of them. The defensive line destroyed. Now, I mean, it's young, it's learning. You can kind of accept that on there. But offensively, the offensive line, that isn't young. It's got a seasoned left tackle, one of the best one of the best centers in the entire NFL, the best right tackle in the NFL. It's healthy to the point as well as it can be. And that got bodied, absolutely bodied. Our run game, non-existent. Where are they? And this is a team who is built like you. The Carolina Panthers are built like you. They have invested so much in their trenches, on their offensive line, on the defensive line a couple of years ago. And this is a team you are playing who is similar to you, and you lose, and it's not even a competition. That's what is concerning. I'm not, and like I say, I know you lose games, but why has my offensive line been destroyed by them? Why has the run game not got going? That is the big, really big issue I have with this game. It looked like they were second best all game long. Goff had so many passes battered down. Why are they not creating rushing lane? Where's the run game gone? What's happened? I wasn't concerned about it before, really, because we were picking on bad secondaries. But in here, this is a kind of game where you want to impose your will, extend drives, keep them on the side, keep momentum in your direction. And it wasn't there. And that's the big issue I have with this one. I don't think we can blame it on youth. I think that, this was a really bad loss, and one that, needs a lot of examination, because now we're in a situation where I think personally we're in a kind of hell these last 2 weeks now. Either our season ends to the Bears, who are fucking awful, or it potentially ends with us being a highlight reel on the Aaron Rodgers makes it to the playoff in highlight reel from out of nowhere. And I think it's, unless you win out both of them and sneak in, it's just a sour way to end such a nice season.
Yeah, let me go into this in more detail then. Elevations for the game: safety Brady Breeze, tight end Garrett Griffin. Those were both injury-related elevations. Inactives for this game: offensive lineman Coyote Awashika and Ross Pierschbacher. The fullback Jason Govinda, running back Craig Reynolds, defensive lineman Michael Brockers and Austin Brown, and safety Deshaun Elliott. Start this game, Panthers continually burn the Lions up front with consistent runs through the tackles for big gains. I think in the first two tries, they had 3 30-yard carries, which is just not acceptable, really. First touchdown was a Darnold option play. He actually ran at an edge rusher and then decided to pitch it to Blackshear for a touchdown 3 yards out. 7-0 Carolina. Lions hit back in their next possession. But one of the best passes I've seen Jared Goff make this season. Goff, with pressure in his face, gets the ball out with urgency, and a nice throw on time to DJ Chark, gets tackled short of the touchdown line, but a play action pass to Shane Zylstra does the rest from close in. 7-7, and then everything changes. Carolina punt on their next possession, but then Goff fumbles the snap at the 9-yard line of Carolina. And it really feels like, boys, that the game turned on that moment. At that point, the Lions are looking like, within the 10-yard line, first down, that they're at least going to go 3 points up. And the way the offense has proceeded in the previous drive and this one, that they're probably going to go 7 up here. And then they're going to put Carolina under some real pressure. Yeah, they've been burned on the ground, but you take a lead in, suddenly that's going to put pressure back on Panthers. Suddenly, there's a turnover, an unforced error in the handoff between Ragnow and Goff. He never had it, and suddenly the Panthers start burning you on the ground again when it's level play, and we were always behind from there.
Yeah, game died on that play, and it was kind of a shame, really, because the offense looked really good. They looked like they were struggling to stop us, just like we were struggling to stop them, but it's these little things that count. And this is from the most experienced unit of our team. The offense is meant to be carrying the defense through this, really. And to come up with such a balls up there, it's just, someday this team has to get over that hump. This game meant something, and such a basic mistake. Like he said, it's never happened before between them two, not the way it happened in this. And it's like, well, why is it happening in our most important game of the season? It's just something that always seems to be a little something there that happens. And as for the defense, they were just bad. You know, I said last week, I think the Panthers offense is really underrated. You know, Hubbard is a great player. Blackshear came in and played well. He returned well in this one. I said he would. Their special teams was good here. So, yeah, it was frustrating because we looked good at the start of this game. You kind of thought, oh, we'll give it to them here. But yeah, that mistake killed us, and it was not a game after that, unfortunately.
Ryan, your thoughts on the Goff throw, first of all, and then the Goff fumbled handoff?
Great throw. Like you say, it's made difficult because, like you say, he's got someone in his face, so he can't get everything he wants on it. It looks like it falls a bit short, but Chark has actually shown in the last few weeks that he's able to understand that and come back and adjust. Like I say, he wants out in front of him, but he realizes it's going to fall a yard short, comes back while the defender doesn't turn his head and manages to secure it and gets brought down. So on both sides, it's a really good connection, and that's Chark showing what he does best. Like I say, he's able to get those guys downfield, get DBs to go with him and follow him. And Chark, I mean, Goff, even with pressure in his face now, he's finding more rhythm when he wants to look deep. So great connection. And then it's difficult because even if we score there, from everything I've seen after, we still lose. I'm still convinced it does not affect the result of the game, but I think it changes the whole dynamic. I think we can get in a shootout if we score there because we saw, like I say, we give the ball over, and at the 9-yard line, they've still got 81 yards, 90 yards to go, and it was like a knife through hot butter. Like you have to go out there and tell your defense, I'm sorry guys, can you do me to get the ball back? And we've been a handful of players we're behind, and Carolina killed us with some of the simplest football I've seen. And that was one of the most, they didn't do out fancy. They were running between Aleem McNeil and Isaiah Buggs a lot of the day. They were running past through the nose tack on the tackles. And that is the most painful thing about it. Because Buggs, we were hailing him last week as probably the best free agent addition. And then this week, him and McNeil were just getting like parted like the Red Sea. Like Darnold was Moses and he had his way of us. And yeah, Foreman having a nice little renaissance, which was never going to be good for us. Hubbard, big bearer back, and playing in Carolina, they're used to, like they say, those chilly conditions as well. Like I say, they're fine handling the ball. They had no ball security issues whatsoever, even though it's the coldest game ever at Bank Field. Like Chubb is Canadian. He said coldest game he's ever played in is like -15. He'll play in a freezer, he don't care. So, but yeah, it was hard. Like I say, Kirby, Jeff, like on that drive, remember some big missed tackles, like when they were coming trying to crash down or like keep contain. It was bad, but yeah, the moment we fell behind, that was kind of it. Like Carolina were then able to implement their will and just chew up clock, and we would just never seem to get back in any rhythm, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. So that drive after Carolina take over in their own 10-yard line, they burn us on the ground once again. And actually, I think it's Foreman that gets away, and he's running upfield, I think, from their own 20, and he's got over midfield, he's got to the 40, and Okuda makes a fantastic last kind of desperate saving tackle, which saves a touchdown. Would have been like a 70-yard or something. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop with scoring. Finished off by Darnold with a zone read, keeper moving to his left. I hate the fact that Darnold has the ability to actually do zone read keepers for touchdowns from like 5 yards out and just walks it untouched. It's good play design. It's not anything world beating. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not immobile, though, clearly. They move 14-7 up, and then they double down. The Lions have to punt on the next possession, and a lovely deep throw to Terrace Marshall on the far sideline. He was picked out by us as a one to watch on this game. He is experiencing, after a really slow year, a renaissance this season, showing why everyone thought that he was a good pickup in round 2 in the draft in 2021 from LSU. He bullied whoever was in coverage on that play. I didn't get to see who it was exactly, but that drive...
Jerry?
It was Jerry. There we go. And Foreman actually runs in untouched from about 7 yards out, making it 21-7. the half finished off with a field goal to Carolina late on. They got down to the 18 with 6 seconds left and took the field goal. So 24-7 at this point, boys. And they've moved from 7-7 to 24-7, 17 unanswered points. It's just rough. Like, it feels like at this point there's no way back. Like, desperately clinging to the idea that, okay, you're 17 down, get a touchdown on the board and ask the question. But even if you did that, it didn't really feel like there'd be any coming back from this. It was curtains.
It was embarrassing. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to realise you're coming up against a quarterback who has been out in the cold there, who they tried to replace and get rid of. And the running back room, while I say I admire it, it's not got a proper stud in there. It's got a journeyman and some young guys, and they're good, but where's the defensive scheme adjustment? Where's the fight? There was nothing. They just imposed their will on us all day. Apart from that second drive when we stopped them and looked like we had a chance of getting through, they just lathered us. Deep throws from Darnold. The one to Terrace he mossed Jerry. And then I think after that, they got about a 25-yard run after that. 2 back-to-back massive plays just took them all the way down the field. And we had nothing for them. And it's kind of concerning. You can accept losing, but it didn't look like they changed a damn thing. You know, there was zero pressure on the quarterback. We didn't touch the quarterback all day. Literally didn't touch him. His uniform was clean. So it was just embarrassing. There's not really a lot more you can say about it. Just a complete lack of fight from the defense. Missed tackles, 13. 13! I mean, you can do basic shit like that and still lose and be bad, but when you just everything's going so wrong, you know, it's embarrassing.
It's like we'd gone back in a time machine. This was like the week 3 defense. Like, it wasn't surprising because we'd seen this defense. Well, I'd say still fairly recently, like before this 7-game stretch. Like, we knew we were capable of imploding, but the 7-yard touchdown to me was the one that summed everything up. He went through like 2 linebackers, a safety, and a whole D line, and I don't think anyone coughed on him. No one touched Foreman. No one even got close to tackling him because they just sealed everyone off. And that one, that hurt. That was a proper gut block. At that point, I'd accepted that we were going to lose and that we're not going to be able to get back into this because we just weren't stopping it. Let's say for the first time in a long time, I didn't even know Hutchinson was on the field. They did a magnificent job. They nullified him. They made him look like he works at Walmart. Houston, like I say, he either didn't go. Like, we saw Pascal, but that wasn't a good thing because he was missing tackles. He was not keeping the edge. He was not setting the edge. Like, he had a rough day, but yeah. This was the first game in a long time where it looked like a bunch of veterans and a bunch of rookies because the guys were getting picked on. And I always worry about, let's say, like, one guy don't make a defense, but when I saw Deshaun Elliott was hurt, I'm like, oh, that's not good. If he can't play next week, that could be a disaster too. Like, sometimes, like, he's a bit of an enforcer. He's that hard-hitting guy that makes guys think twice about trying to run through him. There were none of that there. Like I say, it was just, we're going to run really long. If you stop us scoring, we'll punch it on the next play. It was just, that's fine. Like I say, the clock keeps ticking. So at that point, I was like, let's just try and make this a respectable contest and score some points in the second half. I'll come out of the half and try to do something. But didn't see that either really for a while.
And I think this is where, you know, I've been trying to talk nice about Anzalone these last few weeks and that. And he's been a lot better, but, you know,
rotten.
Your young players were struggling in this one. Jerry Jacobs, who's been amazing, struggled. Rodrigo, who's been amazing, struggled. Where is that leader who grabs them and picks them up and pushes the defense forward? Where is that leadership on that team? And I think that's what was missing in this. Anzalone ain't the guy who picks them up and pushes them forward and puts them through it. And I think that's where it's like, right, you still need to get guys in on this defense and you need to get someone who can do that, because I think this was lack of leadership on the field. as well. You know, when you're young rookies who have been carrying you through the season, who've been sort of leading the standard, sometimes they're going to have an off day, and that is fine because they're young rookies and they're going to have days like that. But you've got to have the veteran leadership around them to push them up and pull them forward, and we didn't have it.
Okay, so in a defense of Anzalone, I will say that in terms of what we've seen from him throughout the course of his Detroit career, he has risen and fallen with the abilities of the defense he's playing. When the defense is playing well, he generally plays well. When the defense plays poorly, he's playing poorly. If you want someone to lead by example, to haul people up, to be the best player on the field, I do not think you're finding that for 1 year, $2 million, or whatever contract he's on. If you want to go out and get a superstar linebacker for $10 million plus a year to be the best player on the field, you go do that. If you want Anzalone to do that, you're on a hiding to nothing because he's not that guy. I'm sorry, but like, you cannot look to him and say, okay, we need leadership from you. We're doing badly. You got to be the one to haul them up. Yeah, in terms of the guy who can be a veteran presence, he's clearly that guy because he is a veteran and he's an admirable guy. Like, he is someone who I have admiration for. But in terms of production and quality on the field, you're looking at the wrong player. And in fact, I think this is the problem with the defense in general. If you look at this defense, there is no world-class player on it, including Hutchinson. He's a rookie. I think he'll get there. But if you want him to be that reliable guy every down, and yeah, that's kind of what we were sold on him on the draft. But as a rookie, it's kind of harsh to be putting that all on his plate. At the end of the day, there is no one on that defense who is a top-tier defensive talent, and that's the issue right there. It's not to do with Anzalone.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean in terms of, you know, a lot of people saying he's been playing better. Oh, maybe do you keep him next year? Not invest at linebacker, etc. I think this shows that you kind of have to keep investing. It's not about what he's on, but it's just kind of right. Someone else needs to be in there with these young guys who is paid more to do it. It's not that's me. It's not dig at him. It was kind of, we were talking last week about, oh, maybe he has a future here beyond this year, possibly. But I think this is now kind of a case of no. We need someone. There's too many young guys on that side, and I think somewhere you've got to have a guy who can lead them properly when the times get tough. And I think we need to make the investment there. So it's just one of those. It's like on the defensive line you mentioned, can't be on Hutch yet. He's a rookie. Let him learn his game, pressure free. Don't put the leadership on there. Brockers is meant to be in there and doing it, and he's not. And that defensive line is young as anything. Aleem is young, you know. Kamish, you know, I know he's a vet, but you know, this is his first time of playing as a starter for a long time. So this shows that we need to invest highly in someone, some form of leadership on that defense. I think that's the overall point I was trying to make on this one.
Right.
Necessarily trying to have a go at him.
I think the thing about linebacker is not only is there a lack of quality generally, you're starting a 6th-round rookie, your backup player is a 4th-round player who had a bad year 1, who's come back to do better, but those are your 3 guys alongside Anzalone. And actually, what we need to do is return those 3 guys, because actually, as a foundation, as a core, that's good. And get that superstar. If you can get that superstar to play every down, and when you have 3 linebackers on the field, have 2 out of those 3, or when you have 2, you have those 3 guys rotating depending on the situation. I think that's a really good place. Like, you've seen play from these 3 that could stand you in good stead long term if they're not being asked to be the 2 or 3 on the field every single down. Like, the point is, they're 1 player away. Getting rid of Anzalone on his contract for what he can produce, I think, is subtraction by subtraction. Like, for $2 million, what he's produced this season is value for money. So why would you rather have Josh Woods or Alex Anzalone on this team? And I know Josh Woods is the special teams captain. He's done a very good job there, but Anzalone has done a reasonable job, and this is just a blip for me.
Oh, I'd say neither. I just not being harsh, but I just like, you've got to have some leadership on there, I think, and it's key going forward, especially when you've got so many young fellas. And this for me is what was one of the big problems. The defense never looked like it got going, but you don't feel like there's that guy in there who's going to take them on the sideline, who's going to rip the fuck out of them, but at the same time be like, right, I'm going to be the guy who leads by example. You follow me, and we do this together. It's just blatantly obvious that is not there at the minute, because just like I say, there's just too many young guys who right now are trying to learn the game and learn how to play in the NFL. And that's absolutely what they should be doing. And, it's going to be an issue for free agency now. Going to need to try and find someone who can be a tone setter out there for all these young guys so that the defense can take the next step forward in games like this when, situations against them.
For me, it wasn't even the most worried position. It wasn't even on defense. Running back for me, I don't know what to do. And people are saying it now, DeAndre Swift, total lack of effort. I'm sorry, but he's just not trying. We're seeing it now that he looks like he's giving up on players. He's not following blocks. He's not following assignments. I know it's not a good week to see it, but in the last few weeks, it's starting to be more visible. Like say receptions, like say that are far out in front of him. He's not even stretching. He doesn't look bothered if he gets missed. Like I'm starting to doubt him even having a future at all in here. And my draft things, the players and the positions I'm looking at now are starting to realign, and I'm very worried if Jamal's hurt these last 2 weeks. I think he can kiss goodbye at any chance of making a playoff if he has to miss these games, because there's no relief. Justin is a nice flittering talent, but right now, DeAndre, the kid's checked out. I think the kid's checked out on the season. Like I say, if he's so-called healthy and gets thrown in there, but I'm just seeing lack of effort. And this week, I just didn't see it again. I just didn't see the desire to break tackles or get through the line. And it worries me. I'm really contemplating just dealing him at some point and drafting a back. Because I think at some point that
go big.
Juice is going to lose. Juice is going to lose his shit this offseason. I think he's really going to lose his rag with him at some point.
I think go big for Bijan is going to become a slogan, because I think that is kind of the caliber of thing you're going to want to put in there, because our run game is critical to how we play. I think you have to look seriously now at putting a big pick into that position, because we value it a lot highly than a lot of other teams will.
Just looking at that running game, just to give you the stats, DeAndre Swift, 4 carries for 12 yards. Jamal Williams, before his injury, 7 carries for 11 yards. And Justin Jackson, 1 carry, -1 yard. The long carry for a running back in this game was 4 yards. Khalif Raymond did have 1 for 8. Amon-Ra 1 for no gain. And as I said before, Jared Goff 3 for 15, including a 14-yard rush. Let's have a look at that second half now. And it started off with a 3 and out by the Lions, and Carolina proceed down the field once again. A massive throw this time. It's DJ Moore straight down the middle of the field, beating Okudah deep. I think Okudah was actually benched after that play for the remainder of the game. Moore finished it off with a wide receiver screen touchdown on the near sideline, got the blocks up front. He actually fumbled the ball into the air and caught it the other side of the end zone for that touchdown. 31-7 Carolina at that point. Goff deep throw to Raymond was an absolute peach of a ball. Again, it's one of those ones where if he puts it right on the money, Raymond can probably just waltz in for a touchdown. So it's slightly off position. But the fact that it's even completed at all at that sort of range, you're going to take that every day of the week. Ends up with a 4th and 2. And Goff is given all day in the pocket. Moves slightly to his left before throwing across his body to the right-hand side, where Shane Zylstra goes in for his second of the game with plenty of room. The Lions, 18 points down, go for 2 to try and make it a 2-possession game, but it was no good. They had absolutely no chance on the play. In the mix of the next possession, DJ Moore has a lovely toe tap reception on the near sideline, end up with a field goal on that drive for 34-13. And then on the next Carolina drive, Laviska Shenault makes an absolute mockery of the Lions DBs. He receives the ball at the Carolina 20 and waltzes his way past, I think, 5 tackles on that sideline before being bundled out at about the Detroit 30. I think they get another field goal at that point. Chark then gets a really big gain himself, weaving through tackles, not unlike the Shenault pass. Goff then to the back of the end zone, nearby the end zone, to Shane Zylstra for his third, a hat trick for Shane, 37-23 at that point, and 37-20, and then the Lions get a late field goal to make it 37-23. I mean, a couple of things else to mention from this game. Carolina did end up with 2 sacks, both by Brian Burns. Those are the first sacks that the Lions have conceded in the last 4 games. Panthers ran 11 personnel, 51% at the time, and got 0.53 EPA per play and 0.4 overall. The Lions had 0.13. So, I mean, they were 3 times more efficient per play on average. And we talked about how destructive the Carolina offensive line and running backs were. Carolina had 139 rushing yards before contact on 43 attempts. That is 3.23 yards per attempt before contact. You do that for three runs in 3 downs, you're getting 9.69 yards every 3 plays. You only need to get 0.31 in those 3 plays after contact to convert every single time. I mean, they almost couldn't lose this game with how they absolutely put us to the sword, boys.
It was a clinic. It was an absolute clinic on how to play physical, aggressive bully ball. And that's what it was. They bullied the hell out of us. The defense, they didn't let up on them. They played at a high tempo, just kept running, and it meant Darnold could do his stupid in-play action stuff where you can't get anywhere near him. And they've got the receivers to be dangerous there. They've got the speed, they've got the quality, they've got the skill. And then on offense, they just kept coming after us time and time and time again. If it wasn't Burns mossing someone, sacking off, linemen batting passes down, very aggressive when tackling. I mean, how many times did we have receptions and the ball bounced out because of physical hits and stuff like that? There's only Amaral who didn't give them up. It was just straight up, kid at school getting bullied by the bigger, tougher guy, and he can't do anything about it. He just sits there and takes the punches and has his lunch money stolen, and that's what this was for us. We had all our lunch money stolen off us. Just we couldn't do anything about it. We rolled over and had our bellies tickled, and it was embarrassing. Like Ryan said earlier, it's the manner that we lost, not the fact that we lost. You can take losing, but not getting your ass whooped like this. I mean, this is what we did to the Jaguars, and it's not nice being on the other end of it. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, and there's not really much else to add to that. Apart from JC Horn is a dirty ass player for injuring Jamal Williams. I know me and Ryan have disagreed about it, but I thought that was disgusting. And then Bugs gets called a few plays later for something that's nowhere near as bad. And it's just like, the refs were not much in this, but they made some really dubious calls as well.
It was just, no matter even way, you can call it a comeback, or you can say it was flattering. Like the score line was not a real representation of how this game went. It was 3 quarters of us having our ass kicked, being 31-7 down. And then Carolina saying, whatever happens, we're not losing this. We're not going to change our game plan. We're still going to run. We're still going to score on every drive, and if it's field goals, and we're going to get it over the line. And we tried to claw our way back, like I say, good plays, guys getting free, but I was never convinced. I never thought we'll make it a comeback. Like I say, the 2-point conversion, the play was doomed for the snap. I don't know what happened, but it looked like it was never going to happen. It looked like a terrible idea. Then the onside kick, it kicked like a bloody knuckleball. It was that fast, no one could recover it. So that was poor execution. I don't know. They usually bounce or bobble, but no one could catch that. Just, yeah, we were beaten. I can live with being fairly beaten and not being the better side. I can live with that. Like I say, it's not like we were robbed right at the end of a heroic comeback, like where they used to find those moral victories. But like I say, I know fans are frustrated. Like I say, like I saw comments saying that Jameson Williams wasn't really used because the pitch was icy and frozen. They were worried about the conditions. They thought it wasn't a good game. They didn't want to risk him. That, if that's true, that's bizarre, because like I know he's just come back to surgery. You can't blame the weather. The more risk of injury. I know Goff's come out after the game and said the field is basically dog shit and this field needs to be turned up, but it didn't really affect his game, did it? Like the field never really cost Goff anything, so that feels like almost looking for an excuse. And I hate to be the ones that try to make excuses.
At the end of the day, both sides had to play on that field. I mean, it's, if anything else, it's an equalizing point. Like, who cares what the field is like? Go play football, for fuck's sake.
And it's not like they're the Buffalo Bills who play in those conditions every year. This was like one of the coldest. This was the coldest game they'd ever had at that stadium.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is some form of a home field advantage for them where they get the cold weather and they beat other teams down who are not used to playing in it. One, we play in a lot of cold weather, and two, they don't. So if anything, it was more of an advantage to us, the conditions in this one, and we still got our asses kicked. And it was, again, it's just, that's the overall thing of it. It's just disappointment by how badly we got beaten up rather than actually losing.
Absolutely. So what I'd sort of go on to some talking points here. I know we've kind of covered a few bases already, but actually one that we haven't really touched on so far is, and I have this as a question mark, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to make this case anyway. I have outcoached, question mark, defensive scheme failed. And I think Ryan said this point that they were running between, no, sorry, it was Ant, beg your pardon, who said they were running between Aleem and Bugs, or whoever it was, the two.
That was Ryan.
It was Ryan, my bad. They were running through the nose tackle position when they were playing 2-3 techniques. Like, we were playing 4 down linemen with both DTs quite wide and both defensive edges quite wide, as defensive ends quite wide. And it's like, okay, but if they're running between the tackles and you're trying to stop outside zone and they're burning you inside, you've got to pinch a little bit. Those linebackers are not filling the gaps either. That's a massive problem. You've got to play a little bit closer to the line if you're those linebackers. Stop giving so much, because when that defensive line folds, as they did all day, if those linebackers are a bit closer to the line of scrimmage, they've got a little bit less to think about because they're in their gaps already. The other thing you could have done is maybe transition to 3 down linemen for some of this. Put that nose tackle in, have another 2 guys either side. That condenses things. And yes, maybe they haven't trained in that formation enough. But we're going to do our best to put our best on your worst. And they did exactly that to us.
And can I just add to your point there about how wide they were playing on the defensive line to that play that we didn't mention, the 4th and 1 quarterback sneak, where we had no one in the nose tackle position, the linebackers 5 yards back from the line of scrimmage. I mean, he almost could have just walked through that fucking game. That annoyed the hell out of me, because you talk about outcoached Aaron Glenn then. What the hell is he thinking? It's 4th and 1, chance to get off the field. And like you said, his 2 DTs are at 3 tech. His two big edges are at nearly 7. They're miles out. It's like, what the hell was he thinking with that play? That infuriated me more than anything in this game, and we all said it.
At the end of the day, Chuba and Donta aren't guys who are going to burn you in outside zone. Carolina don't really run it, and they don't have the speed to burn you that way. They are both guys who have a little bit of bruiser to them and a reasonable amount of speed. They're not DeAndre Swift, who are going to burn you on the outside. It seemed like we were set up for a completely different team. The preparation was off. I'm sorry. I know that Ryan kind of said, I'm sure they prepared fine. They didn't. The game plan was fundamentally flawed from the start. And then when it was clearly wrong from what happened, they didn't adjust. I don't know what happened, but I think they were like a deer in the headlights. I just don't know what to do to fix this. And that scares me. People calling for Aaron Glenn's head, and it's I'm sorry, but considering what happened at the start of the year and what's happened up till now for the last 7 weeks, calling for Aaron Glenn's head is madness. Sometimes you just have a bad game. On the other hand, I am worried. This wasn't good, and it wasn't good on production, but it also wasn't good in terms of the theory of what was happening.
I think sometimes a coach will get it in his head that, he's got a game plan. If Aaron Glenn comes into this with a game plan, I think the last thing he wants to do is after 3 or 4 players go, oh shit, I need to change everything. I think sometimes they might stubbornly try and stick with the way they've been preparing to almost prove a point. But again, I'm not calling it Glenn's head, not even close, but it is an issue with him, I think, where he feels like he has to stick to the game plan he's come up with instead of adjusting. If you've got to adjust after 3 plays of a game, I'd rather you do that and say, look, maybe I got my prep wrong for the game, but in game I did the right thing. But like I say, with this, I think he just stubbornly kept to it. Because like I say, the quarterback sneak is unforgivable as a coach. Why the hell your jumbo package ain't on there to stop that? Because we needed more possessions, chance to get them off the pitch, and we just gave it them.
I mean, at the end of the day, if they burn you deep with a play action pass,
that's fine. I'll fucking take that.
Absolutely. You've got to put the jumbo set out there, and if they beat you through the air, well, they were going to beat you on the ground anyway. They have been beating you on the ground. Try something else.
Yeah. He literally fell forward and was not even touched on his way through. How many quarterback sneaks does a quarterback get to the line without being touched? It's crazy.
Yeah. Couple of other things. We kind of mentioned it already, but you can't have Goff being the leading rusher and think you're going to win a game. But talking about Jared, it did feel like sneakily one of his better games as a Detroit Lion. I mean, those two deep passes were excellent. I don't think he missed a deep pass on the day, which is one thing that he's been struggling with all the time. He did have quite a few batted balls at the line. I think partially that's a bit more on the offensive line than him, but he does have a tendency to have balls batted down at the line, which worries me a little bit. But his throws seem to be on time. He seemed to throw caution to the wind, throwing into tight coverage, and got things where they needed to be, but good defense kind of thwarted some of those. I don't think Ben Johnson had a particularly bad game. There were some 3-and-outs where I'd like to change a little thing here or there, but on the most part, you think that the Goff production you had on Saturday probably wins you quite a lot of games, especially if the Detroit defense have played like it had the last few weeks.
I mean, I don't know. 45 yards rushing, you've kind of got to compensate with 400 or 500 yards if you want to kind of win a game. I don't know if it's sustainable, and I don't know how much of it is Ben Johnson's fault, but we've seen how good our run game can be this season. The blocking, the looks we give, the schemes we have. Where is it? There seemed to be no attempt to do something different on offense. We had a lot of 3-and-outs. We never were able to run the ball successfully. And it's like, well, why? Why couldn't we run the ball on them successfully? We've got the personnel. We've got a fully fit offensive line to the point that it can be in terms of players who aren't on IR. You know, you've got your two running backs in there who are relatively healthy or were at the start of the game. So why are you as an offensive coordinator not able to get that run game going? You know, it was just shut down all game. It just never, it was like the DC had his number and never gave it up. So I don't know how concerning it is, but it would worry me slightly that he was not able to get anything going against them. And as for Goff, yeah, Goff played well. I don't really know how bad passes, whether they have, you know, whether it's a quarterback thing, an offensive line thing. I don't know. Like I said, they should just tickle them when they stick their arms in the air, and then they wouldn't be fucking trying to bat down passes. But I think that, yeah, I will give Ben Johnson some tap for this. This was a big game for us, and he couldn't get the run game going, and that's concerning. A little concerning. Can't do it. You know, this one against the Bears this week is big. You can't be losing to them at home when there's something that matters on the line, and he has to find some way to start running the football on them so that we can get back to playing how we're best.
Carolina have now got a blueprint that Bears can adopt. If the Bears want to play like they did, then they can do it. Like say, Fields and Montgomery, like say, if they want to try run through the middle and then give Fields like an RPO rolling out the ball, like Cole Kmet or something like that, they will very much try implement this scheme. And if we Deshaun Elliott, don't know the status again, but in the first game against Chicago, Elliott came up big when he was getting in the field. He was hitting hard. He was making a question about it. We just don't have that now. And like I said, Carolina, I get, like you say, like it was kind of like sink or swim. Let's see if he can sink or swim. Like, but I'd have liked to see a bit more CJ Moore. I didn't see much of him. It felt like it was a trial by fire for Melifonwu. They left him out there at some big points, and he made some good tackles as last line of defense, but only because they were trying to literally run through him, and he was just there. So I think they've got to be more clever with how they use him, because it's clear that he's not up to speed. He's definitely not ready to be that solo guy in the middle. Like I say, it's a big ask and a big expectation of him. So hopefully we're not going to pick up niggling injuries now and limp to the end of the year. Like I say, it's going to be interesting to see. Like I say, Rag now he's been banged up all year, hasn't he? That foot has given him trouble all year. And this was one of the first weeks where we kind of saw it almost take effect. So the guys out there are beating up, but yeah, I can't let Chicago beat us. Not home. Like I said, this is the game that means the most.
You've got to,
I hate them. I hate them so much.
You've got to change something. I mean, you've got to change the right guard position, I think, for me. I know Brown's been good, but he was awful this game.
He's
awful.
He was bad.
Stunk. And I think Logan is the better run blocker. And I know people don't like Logan, but we run the football better when Logan Stenberg is in this team run blocking. Evan Brown is getting shoehorned in there, I feel. And it's just, that kind of showed, it roosted here for us. You got to put Logan back in for me. Yeah. You've got to, two in a row, just like Logan did. Logan got benched for 2 in a row. Evan, oh no, keep him in there. He's fine. I don't know why. There's something different there, but for me, you've got to put Logan back in. And you mentioned Iffy briefly there. The way they are treating him is shameful. I said the position change. Don't do it. Keep him at corner. They've ruined him. And he looks a shadow of what he was in his rookie year. And if they've got anything about them, they'll move him back and stop with this experiment, trying to make him work at safety. It's not him. It's not what he does. Put him back at outside corner where he belongs and stop this stupid experiment trying to make him work at safety, because the fans are getting on his back. It's not his fault. He played well last year and injuries hampered him. He's been shoehorned into that position. So Will Harris can play at cornerback, and now he's getting the tap for it. I think it's wrong what they've done with him.
I mean, I don't think it's down to Will. I'm not going to put that on him, but I do agree that Melifonwu is an outside corner. If you look at Melifonwu's skill set, he is a fast, rangy guy who's got good instincts, but is not the best tackler. Tackling is the biggest trait that a safety needs to have, and actually instinctual guys work best as a cornerback. Thinking guys make sense as safeties. Safeties have got more time to think about things. If you give Melifonwu time to think about things, I actually think that's where he tends to make mistakes. And not being a great tackler means that you're going to get burned sometimes. And actually, Melifonwu's tackling, he saved us in a couple of spots as well as he didn't in that game. And as a safety, as the last line of defense, if you miss one, you end up having one go for a touchdown. We didn't give up a long touchdown in this game, just massive chunk plays all the way through. And that really was the front seven's job. So it feels like ragging on Melifonwu's harsh, but Ant's absolutely right. Sticking back at outside corner. I know we don't really have a massive need there this season, but Mike Hughes is up for renewal. Will Harris is up for renewal. I mean, who else is going to be playing at corner next year? You got Jerry. You got Jeff. Amani's gone. You need someone, and he's someone who could absolutely make that transition back. So I completely agree. Let's go 2 up, 2 down, fellas, on this game. If you can think of 2 guys for 2 up, that's impressive. But Ryan, why don't you take a crack?
Down Swift. Just no. Down Jeff. Yeah, stinker. His coverage is becoming more questionable. Now he's the other guy. I think he would suit a position change. I really don't trust him outside corner. He's getting burnt. Like I said, he's slow. Jeff Okudah is a slow cornerback. If you get him behind him, he's toast. He just does not have recovery speed. He did not have it at Ohio State. He's never been known for being fast. That hybrid kind of role where he's put best because he's a great tackler and he's got good instincts and nose for the ball, I think would suit the position. But yeah, bad game. 2 ups, changed Zylstra. Just a great day. Was just in the right place at the right time, got free and made himself available. Can't ask much more of him. And what other up?
Don't have to do 2 if you don't want to.
The fans who went to watch.
I'll just say Khalif Raymond. I actually think that Khalif in the last few weeks has come up super clutch. Like I say, he had a good run, good catch. And yeah, special teams right now is really good. I feel like he's going a long way to keeping a roster spot next year at a position that's about to become crowded. Because I think we'll still bring in maybe another high-level guy in the draft. So receivers about to become a premium high-end position. and he still finds a way to hold his own despite being undersized and kind of pigeonholed in that slot. So yeah, I'm happy with Khalif and the value for money.
A little bit of breaking news here, fellas. It's Panthers related, but I find it funny considering what Ant was just saying about JC Horn being a dirty player. JC Horn is undergoing wrist surgery and is done for the year. The Panthers are working out veterans cornerback Josh Norman potentially to replace him, which
not
is
that
absolutely horrific.
Oh, he's
so
cancer. I can't stand Josh Norman.
No, me neither. But big loss for Carolina. Horn maybe a.
And they've now got the Bucks.
Probably.
They've now got the Bucks as well next.
Probably.
Mike Evans licking his lips.
Probably screwed his wrist when he was leveraging Jamal over on that slam. Serves him right.
It was more of a wrestling move than it was a football move for sure. And
but the thing that pisses me off is when you see him, he's got him. He's going nowhere. Jamal is going nowhere, and you see him put the effort and proper slam him down. He doesn't have to do that. He can just bring him down. He puts effort into slamming him to the ground. That is illegal, and that injured Jamal. So if he injured his wrist on that play, good.
And 2 up, 2 down for you, sir.
2 up. I'm going to give James Mitchell an up. I think James Mitchell is getting better in our offense. The catches are starting to come. The blocking's been pretty decent with him. After the injuries, it's day 3 pick with us. I'm quite happy with how he's starting to gel his way into this team. So I'm giving Mitchell up. Obviously, Ryan's mentioned Zylstra. He's an up, but I want to try someone else. And then on the defense, I'd give the up. I'd give the up to Houston again. He made more impression on his limited snaps than a lot of the starters did in the entire game here. I genuinely think James is ready for a lot more action here. I know Romeo's back and taking a lot of the snaps, but after Aiden and Romeo, Houston should be the next one in right now. He should be the guy rotating in, getting a good bunch of snaps. And especially these next 2 weeks. Fields very good with his feet, very good at getting out the pocket. Houston is lightning quick. He is exactly the kind of guy we want to bring in on a lot of pass rushing plays to go hunt him down. So, Houston has improved a lot for me. He's done well. I know the sacks of, it's not a sack a game now, but you can see by the way he's playing, he's confident, full of form, and he deserves more snaps. So Mitchell and Houston, they're the ups for me. The downs, Jesus, I don't know where you would really start with the downs here. For me, Evan Brown was a down. He was useless, and it was really poor. So down for him. And then defense, you could probably put most of them in there. Pascal was not very good. I don't think he got an awful lot of snaps on the day, but also didn't do a lot either, which was a shame because we kind of need him to produce as well. So yeah, he would get it down as well.
All right, for myself, 2 up, both on offense. Jared Goff, he started actually connecting with that deep pass. It was the one stick he's being beaten with, and he responded very well to it. The rest of the game, it's hard to say whether it was enough to win the game with a good defense, but I think he did. I think he did some good things. The other guy, DJ Chark, 2 big receptions. One was mostly through the air in the first half. One was mostly with his legs in the second half. He's a versatile guy. When he needs to, he's actually coming up big. He's proving why he should be considered for a renewal. I won't say shoe-in because I just don't think that's true given what's happened with his injury and what have you. But he's at least put his name in the frame. He's doing what he can, and I think that's admirable. 2 down. I'm not going to give any downs to the offense. Yeah, it wasn't a good day on the run game, but clearly this game was lost by the defense. Anzalone, I know we've beaten him already in this, but even though I said you can't put the captaincy and the leadership thing on him necessarily given his quality level, but he was poor on the game. Like Ryan said, he was over pursuing a lot. He was taking the wrong gaps a lot. It's just his worst game of the season, I think, by far. The other guy, I'm going to give the down to Will Harris. Disappointed me just because I've been a bit of a backer of him recently. He didn't have a good day. I think that there is more to be seen from him. I really genuinely do, but he can't afford these sorts of games if he's going to rebuild his reputation with the fans. He put in a couple of good performances this year, but with performances like this, they're going to be forgotten pretty quickly, unfortunately. Fellas, I think we're coming to the end of this one. Anything you guys want to get off your chest before we wrap?
No, I think it's just a case of a bad day at the office. How they rebound from this will be critical because, the Bills we just lost to, but we came back and won last week, and they've had their ass handed to them now. They've been humiliated. And how are they going to respond to that? Are they going to, like Ryan said earlier, let the season end with a meek whimper and no care, and it's just going to all fizzle away? Or are they going to come back next week against Chicago and absolutely kick their ass? Is this going to be our game that the Panthers had this week? Panthers got humiliated the week before by the Steelers. Look how they responded. Are we going to respond like they are and kick Chicago? I hope the answer is yes, because if we do let this season just sort of meekly end now, that would give me some concerns for next year, even though despite we're at 7 wins now. I want to see a big time response from this weekend, because like I say, you've been humiliated. How are you going to respond to it?
You good, Ryan?
Yeah, like I said, the last 2 weeks, it's not about wins and losses for me now. It's about, I want to see what we've learned from this. Like I say, we've been humbled. Can we prove that we can make adjustments and be honest and look at ourselves and say, yeah, things were really bad, so we're going to try and fix them. And just go out and end the season with a bit of pride. Like I say, I want this to be the best in the season we've had in a long time. I want to go 5-1. Like I say, I want that I want to sweep at least someone, just because I want to shut some of those fucking annoying fans up. Bears, Packers fans, my Twitter's full of them, and both infuriating. We need to silence at least one of them, but yeah, I now know where we need to strengthen. This game should prove to me where we need to strengthen, like you say, and I'm back on. It's the defense train. The defense line needs help. I agree with Ant. Linebacker, it needs some investment. It's a position long overlooked to with some late rounders, but I want to see some dollar. If we've got cap on it, I want to see some big investment. But yeah, right now I'm starting to look at who wants to be here next year. There's a lot of guys out there that I've got like question marks against, and these 2 weeks are going to tell me that, do you want to be here next year or don't you? So I care more about that than making the playoffs. A week 17 showdown, win or lose against the Packers, it terrifies me. I just don't want all eyes on us, because it just seems like it's another one of those where that would be a big thing. Like, will they get stage fright again? So the playoffs now for me, I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered if we make it or not. I just want to see us do our own thing.
Hey Ryan, Hudson Card's gone to Purdue. What a fucking move that is.
Well, he's gonna start, but yeah, I don't know who's joining him. There's no weapons, so I don't know. Yeah. Fair
Anyway,
enough. He's gonna get a starting gig. Fair play.
Didn't have that on my list.
All right. Our next episode will be probably on the main podcast Thursday, the Chicago Bears preview show. With any hope, we'll have our friends over on the Chicago side of things to preview that game. Big game for the Lions to see whether they can hang in contention. As I said at the top of the show, a win for the Lions against Chicago ensures that Week 18 is meaningful against the Packers. College Football Podcast will be returning this week with the National Championship semi-finals to come, as well as obviously lots of movement, players entering the portal, coaches jumping ship. You want to tune into them to find out what's happening there. Otherwise, our socials, Royal the Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The group on Facebook for Worldwide Fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK 1 Private Wise, and the website is rotluk.com. You can find Ant's preview articles for each game there. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider. Rate and comment and all that good stuff. You know, it really helps us out. Just remains for me to thank Ryan and Ant for going through this disappointing loss with me. Lads, we're still in this. I'll say to the fans out there for now, I know that Ryan's saying he's not worrying about it, but I will say keep the faith for now. We're still mathematically in this. And after 1-6, I can't believe I'm saying that this deep into December. And if we win this coming weekend, I'll be saying it into January, boys. Let's go Lions, one pride.
Hulk, the Chicago Bears.
One pride. Let's bounce back.